A very good afternoon to you all. Welcome to the first episode of An Hour with Treasury. It's our first of a series of conversations that we're going to be having. Going forward, we are so happy to see we've got quite a good crowd that has come up to join us this afternoon. Maybe just type in the comments section if you're watching on YouTube or watching on Facebook. Just type in the comments, tell us where you are watching us from or following us from, and just let us know where you're at, and we'll just get a sense of the people we are engaging with this afternoon. Basically, there is a misconception that treasury or anything to do with money is on the periphery of mission. It's on the periphery of what we do as a church. Is on the periphery of anything that has to do with the focus and the reason for existence of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. We want to engage you, engage all of us to ensure that we are focused on what Treasury is with respect to the work that we're doing. I'm going to show you a few slides after I acknowledge, following from Westgate Church. That's, I think it's Honorables Florence Ziambi, Lala Rejoice, Big Falls. I'm watching from Rome. Well, look at that. Esoeto, Sisonke, Putitag. Great to see you, and thank you for joining us. So we are saying at the core of mission is the treasury function. And I'm going to share a few slides so that you can understand where we're coming from and understand the context in which we're having this conversation. When we say at the core, we are trusting that collectively we want to connect, collaborate, and reach out. And if you read that slide, it's saying ZWUC Treasury seeks to strengthen, facilitate, and support cross-sector partnerships for mission in the ZWUC territory, Zimbabwe West Union territory, and I should add, and beyond, because as you saw, we have people who are joining us from well beyond our territory. Much can be achieved through collaboration between ZWUC Treasury, ZWUC departments, lower entities, and cross-sector stakeholders for mission. We are stronger together, okay? So when we move to this second slide, you'll observe that we see ourselves as ZWUC Treasury as a department that interfaces with other institutions, other conferences, with projects, and indeed with church members, benefactors, donors, cross-sector stakeholders. Meaning to say, ultimately, what you see in our logo is the sum total of that ethos. To say, instead of being at the periphery, we feel privileged to be working with those in the front line, our pastors, our missionaries, our nurses, our teachers, our educators, to basically facilitate mission as we move and forge ahead. Today, I'm joined by some colleagues of mine. We have the CFO of the West Zimbabwe Conference. Sorry, I caught him off guard. The CFOs never sleep. We also have the CFO of the South Zimbabwe Conference, Elder Ncube. He's been struggling with his connection. We also have the Assistant Financial Officer of the Zimbabwe West Union Conference, and that's Elder Ndewele. Someone is giving us feedback there. Maybe I think it's Ncube. I've muted him. We'll see how it goes going forward. Gentlemen, welcome, and it's a I feel privileged to be chatting with you this afternoon, having this conversation. We also have another guest who we are going to add a little later on this afternoon when we transit to the next phase of our discussion. I see we also have Elder Tsozo. Great, thank you so much. God bless you all for joining us. Let me maybe put this out to all of you. That's Elder Ndlovu, Ndebele, everybody. You know, this year has been an unusual year. We've seen things we've not seen before, not least due to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the economy, on livelihoods. We saw a lot of suffering. But the question that's foremost in people's minds is, how is the church doing financially? You know, are we still a going concern? How are we doing, against our forecasts? And maybe let me start with Elder Ndlovu. You speak for the West Zimbabwe Conference. Let's hear your situation, and then maybe if Ncube is available, that's great. But if you can't, maybe Ndebele, you'll also give us the ZWUC perspective in terms of how it looks like from the union.
Thank you so much, Elder Masuku, and I'd like to welcome all the viewers from all the parts of the world. I think all of us are aware of the challenges that the whole world is facing, specifically related to COVID-19, but you'll also appreciate that our situation in this country also relates to other issues within the economy that may not really be directly involved with COVID-19. For example, the hyperinflationary environment within our functional currency, which is the Zimbabwean dollar. So generally, from I think the beginning of the year, we've been struggling to meet our targets, which was not normal in most, I think, previous years. We've been able to do that. But now when it came to March, which is like April, we got a huge drop in income in the month, specifically the month of April. And then there was a slight increase, just slight increase in the months June, May, June going forward. And then, of course, there was the issue of the exchange rate that's changed because it was fixed from the month, I think, of April, May, and June. And then in July, government then came up with the auction system, which now has somehow increased our figures in terms of bond. But if you compare what we are getting this year in terms of US dollar equivalent, it's actually less than what we have received in the past years.
Okay, so I think maybe if you can answer, you know, people have heard of places where, you know, pastors have been laid off and some put on furlough, like in the UK. How close are we to that kind of situation in our territory?
Thank you for that question, Elder. Fortunately, we have not had to lay off any workers for now, because all of us are aware that COVID is not yet over, and even the scientists are not sure when it will be over. There's speculation, but nobody knows when we will actually get over COVID. And after that, there will be the after effects of COVID. Obviously, at the moment, it's uncertain. But I think what I can confirm is we've managed to stay afloat. We have not laid any workers. We have no plans to lay any workers in the immediate future. Part of that really is because of the hyperinflationary environment. The fact that you are aware that salaries have been eroded from the beginning of the year up to now, obviously that has meant that now, whatever our obligation was, we were unable to increase salaries, yes, but we could meet whatever contractual obligations we had in terms of salaries and allowances. So somehow that has allowed us to actually stay together and remain as a team. And going forward, the truth is the future is uncertain, but we are hopeful that God's work will still go on, and we are praying that we will not be forced to actually lay off any workers in the immediate future.
Yeah, just to be clear that the church does not exist to employ workers, just in case, that's that's the impression we are giving. But I think people are concerned whether, we will continue to operate in the way that they are accustomed to. And I think there's a reassurance that I'm sensing from what you've just said. Elder Ndebele, I'm assuming you're possibly echoing the same, unless if the situation.
It's basically the same. I can only add that this year has been a testimony that God has a way of sustaining his work despite all the odds. When the year began, sometime around March in the first quarter, when this COVID thing came into the picture, we were all fearing that we would see so many layoffs, the church would not be able to pay the workers, mainly because with the lockdown, the collection methods, the traditional collection methods of tithes and offerings were affected. So we're all fearing for the worst, that what will happen if we fail to collect the money from the offerings and tithes from Beitbridge, Victoria Falls, and all other corners of the country. But God has had his own plans in place, and we are still here and we are surviving. The future, though, is still not so, though the current situation is not so good, but the future is promising. Like Ellen White would say, we have no fear for the future except we forget how the Lord has led us in the past. So this year really has testified to me that God is faithful in as far as sustaining his work.
Yeah, I think if we were in church right now, everybody would say amen. We've seen it. We sensed the fear. We turned to God with our fear, and he's come through for us. He has come through for us. I know the lockdowns that we experienced early on in the year had a devastating effect on our communities. We saw the poverty, we saw the hunger, livelihoods were threatened. We saw a lot of suffering. Has the church responded to these unprecedented times, and do we want to share some highlights or some of the things, or maybe how? Let's see if Elder Ncube, every time I add in, he drops off. That's the South Zimbabwe Conference CFO. I think he's struggling with his connection. Ndlovu, do you want to take that? And by the way, maybe speak for all of us as far as this is, because a lot of what we've done together as the Zimbabwe West Union Conference, along with the good people at the West Zimbabwe Conference and the South Zimbabwe Conference. We have not been trying to outdo each other.
Thank you so much, Elder. I think as we started, obviously, Elder Ndebele has alluded to the fact that the normal church setup, as we know, it was affected, and so quickly through the leadership of the union and working together with the two conferences, South Zimbabwe Conference and West Zimbabwe Conference, we came together to put out a live stream, which is continuing up to this time. So we now have the Zimbabwe West Union Conference media live stream every Sabbath. We have programs for everybody within the constituency of the union. So that was the first part, to say that now there is need for us to provide in that area. And then the second part, obviously, you will realize that the lockdowns, initially it was as if it was just going to be that 2-week period and then we'd get back to our normal lives. But unfortunately, as days were going by, we all realized that this thing was actually bigger than we had anticipated. And probably most people had put in place supplies for maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And eventually, a lot of people who are in the informal sector had no income. there was no money coming through. People started trying this and that, but with the lockdown, it was difficult to actually move around. So you will recall that I think it was the 1st of May, the union, together with its 2 conferences, put together a package of meal and some beans and a few other things to just distribute to all the districts, so that at least something can be done from our part in terms of assisting people with something to eat. It was not enough for everyone, but I think it was a gesture to, as a church, to show the people and also to assist within the situation that we're in. You will realize that I think the most affected were those in the urban areas. Those out in the rural areas, most of them were probably least affected when you compare, because we're in touch with all the district pastors just to check on how the situation was like. I know that here in the West, we had a donor, a gentleman from Australia, who also came in and bought some foodstuffs that was actually distributed to some districts outside Bulawayo. And then we also had another challenge, as Bulawayo, you are aware, the water challenges. So there was some effort done to make sure that at least something is done within that area. So I am aware that there are Bowsers that are going to different parts of Bulawayo just to assist with water, because all of us are aware that you can go for 2 weeks without water. And we pray that the rains that have started coming down will continue and our dams will be full and that situation will be lessened. And then also the union, together with the conferences, came up and put together a package for our clinics in terms of PPE that was distributed to the 3 clinics that we have as a union. So that's also something that was done. I'm aware also that there was some program put together for counseling, which was online, done through the union to assist those that were affected in various forms, because remember, this was a sudden change, and obviously a lot of people suffered emotionally and in different other ways. So that in summary, that's the effort that was put together by the conference. And then if we fast forward to the month of July, you will realize that through the General Conference and the SID, 75% of offerings were retained by the local churches. And then only 25% was remitted to the higher organization, while the norm is that 50% is what remains at the local church and 50% is what is remitted to the higher organization. But specifically for the whole month of July, 75% was left at the local church to assist local churches to also do something within their localities in terms of assisting people with the challenges of COVID-19. So in a nutshell, I think in summary, I have not mentioned everything, but I think in summary, that is what was done.
Yeah, no, I think you've summarized it well, and maybe for those who are watching or following, this was a collective effort. So while it was Ndlovu speaking, he's speaking for all of us because we did put our resources together. Excuse me, and some of it is still ongoing, but we want to appreciate maybe the conferences as well for being cooperative, because we don't take that for granted. In some places, I know it's not easy to get that kind of cohesion going. I want to appreciate that. I'm looking at our time, so let me just, maybe on a lighter note, just to change gears a little bit. Ndebele, you know, there's a feeling that all we do as accountants in the church is we count offerings every day. I've got Umfumbeswan, you know, in the UK, says, what do you guys do? I mean, besides, when you finish counting the offering, what what else do you do? So Can you tell us more about what we actually do in Treasury? Maybe even your role specifically, just to give some of our viewers a sense of what we do behind the scenes.
I must admit, I also had a similar conception before I joined the church.
So you thought it was an easy job you were getting into?
I thought you just work Monday, Tuesday, and you are done. The rest of the week, you're just waiting for Sabbath.
Yeah.
But well, I've been in the church for the past 18 years now, and I've seen quite a lot. The role of treasury or accounts in the church is to facilitate the mission of the church through management of financial resources. And this involves receiving the finances, safeguarding them, and dispersing them according to the policies of the church and the actions of relevant committees of the church. So I would say that may sound very simple, but the details of it can take us the whole day, if not the whole month, trying to unpack. In a nutshell, I would say what we do as Treasury, we set up the internal controls that is on the receiving part. For money to come in, there has to be a way of receiving the money that will ensure full accountability for it. And once it has been received, we also need to put in place measures to ensure that it's kept safely. There are no leakages in the system, and that includes banking whatever has been received. And on the disbursement part, we're talking of the various activities of the church that need financing. We're talking of seminars like the stewardship seminars, publishing seminars, and even this program that we are doing now needed money. There's money that had to be dispersed, and for you to disperse that money and to ensure sustainability of the work, there's need to manage your financial resources in such a way that you will not finance one program and wake up the next day without money to sponsor the next program that's upcoming. So that calls in the issue of budgeting. Before the year starts, we prepare our budgets, and as we spend during the course of the year, we will now be checking the expenditures against those budgets. So in other words, we are controlling our expenditures according to the budgets. That's a daily activity. We also have utilities like ZESA, water rates and stuff like that. We have travels, everything needs to be monitored closely so that we don't overspend in one area and find ourselves lacking in other areas. The union also has assets like motor vehicles, houses. Those assets need to be maintained. So that's also part of what we do here as Treasury. And the most important thing, like I said, that we are here to facilitate the mission of the church. We're here to support the welfare of the ministers, the gospel ministers, the pastors. When they're out there preaching, they should not be worried about their upkeep. We make sure they are paid on time. We provide all the allowances on time that the policy provides and things like that. So in a nutshell, that's what our Treasury Department entails. And maybe just in brief, our Treasury Department here at Zimbabwe West Union Conference is a team. We are about 4 in the department. We have our CFO, myself as the Assistant Financial Officer, the accountant, and an accounting clerk. So part of my work is to ensure that the things they post into the system are correct and to produce the financial statements, or rather the reports, to the relevant committees like our ADCOM, EXCOM, to make sure that they make informed financial decisions for the organization. In short, that's what I would say we do here, or I do here in the Zimbabwe West Union Conference Treasury Department.
Okay, no, thanks for shedding some light. And maybe just to add that the world around us is becoming increasingly complex. I know even some of as an example, I mean, now that we're live streaming, the kind of equipment that we need is not the equipment that we needed even 5 years ago. So I think you left out our IT manager who reports into Treasury. Yeah, so that's also key, a key thing of what a key element of what we do, trying to think, trying to live in the future, even in terms of how ICT will be impacting the church as we go. It's almost hilarious. Our elder Ngube is jumping in and out. It's quite unfortunate, but we can give him full marks for trying to join us. Let's hope the connection improves later on. Maybe, Lova, I'm catching you off guard with this one. I mean, it's just 3 men, and the fourth guy who is coming on is also a male. Someone may be asking, are there equal opportunities in the church? Where are the sisters? Where are the ladies? Do you have ladies on your team? Should our sisters out there be concerned that they're not well represented?
Thank you so much. Yeah. I would say that generally, my team, for example, is made up of about 58% females, and the rest will be male. And I know South Zimbabwe Conference should be around about 54% female, and then the difference is male. So yes, we seem to be balanced in terms of gender. And I know that policy does provide for equal opportunities. I think the SID working policy should be 60-10. I think it indicates that the World Church supports non-discrimination in employment practices and policies and upholds the principle that both men and women, without regard to race and color, shall be given full and equal opportunity within the church to develop the knowledge and skills needed for the building up of the church. Positions of service and responsibility on all levels of the church, of course, except those that need ordination. So generally, as long as somebody qualifies, they are actually part of the team. Thank you, Elder.
Yeah, no, I think it's important for people to know that. I know that actually when I was sitting in your chair a few years ago, Elder, I know that the 3 people we hired while I was in that corner of town were all ladies, and I think they've served us well. So that's just a small aside, since people may think this is a boys' club. Yeah. But onto a more serious question. I mean, well, that was a serious question, but a more sort of focused on what we're talking about this afternoon. There's a misconception that I've come across that the use of funds in the church. You know, when people talk of tithe, how tithes are used, how offerings are used. Can you just shed some light in a minute or two as to how we use our tithe when we receive it? Does it all go to our pastor's bank accounts? You know, what transpires? How does it work?
Okay, thank you. I think in terms of tithe, if we go to our church manual, I think it should be chapter 11 that deals with finance. We will all be clear that the church has always been supported from tithes and offerings. And then I think if you go further down, it specifies what I want to just quote, I think should be paragraph 3, which says the tithe is sacred, reserved by God for himself. It is not to be brought into his treasury. Sorry, it is to be brought into his treasury to be used to sustain the gospel laborers in the work. This is a quotation from Testimonies to the Church, volume 9, page 249. So generally, use of tithe cannot just be used for anything. So within the manual, you will also realize that tithe cannot be used at the local church, which implies that tithe has to be remitted in full to the higher organization. And then as you get there, whatever 100% is remitted to the conference, 2% of that goes to the general conference. And then the SID, I think the percentage should be around about 6%. And then the union, I would just summarize retirement first. I think retirement is about 12%. Of course, that one changes depending on what is voted. Otherwise, I think for us here is 12%. Otherwise, it's a range from 5 to 15. And then we also have the union, which is in total 19%, giving us a total of about 39%. So which leaves about 61% of that being what is actually used within the conference as a whole. And if we go back to the SID policy, I think it's V14, it will tell us that tithe is to be used for one purpose, which is to sustain the ministers whom the Lord has appointed to do his work. It is to be used to support those who speak the words of life to the people and carry the burden of the flock of God. So basically, there are guidelines on how tithe is used, which then guide the conference as we work. So most of the tithe is used for sustenance of the pastors and those that support the work of the pastors. And so you will realize that we don't use tithe for building churches. We don't use tithe for building offices and things like that. So generally that, in summary, because this is a long question, but in summary, I think that's what I can say about tithe.
Okay. Maybe just elaborate on when you say it's used to support, the those who are involved in the work of the church. Is it all of it, or are there limits as to how much you can use?
Okay. Salaries and allowances maximum should be 50%. It cannot exceed 50% of gross tithe. So obviously, because we don't as an organization exist just to pay salaries, there are other issues that are covered that relate to auditing, which is part of internal control. It's also covered there. There are issues that relate to camp meeting speakers. There are issues that relate to evangelism. There are issues that cover a lot of other aspects that maybe I have not mentioned here, that will then be covered in terms of the use of tithe.
Okay, Ndebele, do you want to add anything? I think Ndovo's done a good job of kind of putting us in the picture. Or maybe you can talk about offerings, because he was speaking to, to tithes. Maybe there's a comment there as well. This information on tithe distribution must be shared as many times as possible. There's a lot of misconceptions about it, and most people believe that 100% is remitted to the general conference. Okay, that's true. And thank you. That's our brother Pepe. I know that has been contentious. It has brought certain unnecessary, maybe tensions on something that is not actually factual. Yeah. So I think we take that on board. And basically what I'm getting is we need to do more to let people know what this is all about. Okay, that's an interesting comment here. This is amazing. My pastor said it's for him, and that one of the things we stopped going to church. Okay, that's an interesting one. Choho Efyong. I don't know if that's a sister or brother, but it seems like someone from beyond our borders, but it's an interesting comment. Ndebele, anything on offerings?
Sure. On offerings, the mission of our church is not limited only to the preaching of the gospel directly as our pastors do. We also have some other entities like clinics, we have schools, and other vehicles for spreading the gospel indirectly. So our offerings mainly are the ones that are used to support those activities. The breakdown of the sharing of the offerings is as follows. The 100% is collected at the local church. The local church retains 50% for its operations, and that includes all its activities like the Lord's Supper, the janitor's salaries, cleaning of the church, the janitorial services, and everything that the local church has to do, including the crusades that they need to conduct. That also includes church buildings. If they want to build a church, it comes from the money for building churches comes from the offerings. And that accounts for the 50% of the offerings that's collected. Let's assume a member offered $100 note. Let it be US so that it becomes meaningful. Okay, so $50 will remain at the local church.
Maybe let's correct you there. Any amount is meaningful.
Okay, yes. Okay, and then the 50% that's passed on to the conference retains 20%. And out of this 20%, the conference has to give schools some appropriations. And if I'm not mistaken, our union has more than 40 schools, both primary and secondary schools. So each school is supposed to benefit from the offerings through appropriations and other support activities that the schools may need. We also have clinics, so they also benefit from those offerings. And there are some other activities, like in the recent past, there's been a lot of realignment of campsites. And the conferences, I'm aware, they've been contributing toward the development of campsites. All those monies are coming from there, from the 20% that remains at the conference. So that's the $20 that has remained at the conference to take care of all those things that I've just mentioned. The 25%, sorry, the 30% is passed on to the union, and the union will retain 5% of that 30%. And that $5 that remains at the union will take care of some of our entities like Quich, and we have Solusi University, and some other activities that Elder Ndlovu alluded to that cannot be sponsored from tithe income. Like we have, you can't build offices, you can't talk of buying motor vehicles for the union using tithe funds. So the 5% or the $5 that remains at the union takes care of such activities at the union. And the 5% is passed on to the division, and the 20% goes to the general conference. The 20% at the general conference is used to further the global missions of the Adventist missions. We're talking of the Adventist World Radio. We're talking of global pioneers that we have seen even in some of our localities. They are all sponsored from the 20% that goes to the general conference as their percentage for offerings. I think in a nutshell, that's how the offerings are distributed and how they are used in the various structures of the church.
Yeah, so I think this is an ongoing conversation. I see we're running out of time as well for this session. We'll also zone in on certain parts of what has been discussed, but I think you've given us a good sort of round figure. Okay, let's just quickly take this question though. May you also explain why we do this 50-50 thing with offerings? Some members believe this is to the disadvantage of the local church and want to go back to the old system of 3 offering collections. Okay, well, I mean, the quick question to this is that this is something that was voted for at the division level. not that it's an answer to the question, but it explains why we do it. I mean, the first reason why we do it is because it's something that was adopted after being voted by the higher organization. It applies throughout the SID territory. In terms of disadvantaging the local churches, this is, I mean, I've been in the church for a while. This is always love and will confirm that everywhere where you get up to speak, this is probably one of the things that you have to address. But from our perspective, it's 50% of the $100 bill that Ndebele was talking about. The biggest chunk actually goes to the local church, which is the 50%. The 20 to the conference, 20 GC, 55. So I've always said 100% of zero is zero. So it also needs to inform how we give with respect to offerings. The more we are generous, the more remains at the local church. But let me dedicate a special program in the future for us to address this. I know I've kind of scratched the surface, but I thought since it's been asked, we can quickly address it. Maybe the last one for you, Ndlovu, before we just quickly transit.
Okay.
We have bad apples in the church. We are not yet in heaven. We know there are some bad things that do happen in the church. We know that there have been instances where certain things have not gone according to plan. So, which has also, created suspicion at times and things like that. What channels can someone follow if they want to blow the whistle on an ethical practice that they come across, be it at the local church or in our offices, or even a query? Maybe someone returned tithe in January. We are in October. They haven't received a receipt. Those kind of things. How can such people be assisted?
Thank you so much, Elder. That's a tough question, but
Yeah,
the truth is that within the church manual, and maybe I'll reiterate this, the church manual probably gives us guidance because this is what unifies us as a church worldwide. It may seem small, but it contains ways that will assist us, and maybe the guiding principle is based on Matthew 18. I think as we deal with all the issues that we handle at whatever level, whether it's conference, union, or local, we should always apply Matthew 18 to say that if I do something wrong to you, I should have the guts to come to you as a fellow brother in Christ and address the issues between the two of us. Once we address issues, there is no one else who hears them. For example, if maybe I find that maybe I've given $100 and my receipt is written $10, I should go to the treasurer and speak to the treasurer about that. But you are also aware that in terms of internal control, the treasurer should count that money with somebody else, not by themselves. So there should be two witnesses that have witnessed the opening of that envelope. And then further to that, should that not work, Matthew 18 says you find somebody else and you also go with that person to the treasurer to say, I have this query. If that doesn't work, then you send the issue to the elders and then it is taken to the church so that the church is the one that deals with that issue from the head elder, the elders in charge, and the church pastor. Normally, that's what happens. But having been a treasurer at local church sometime, I'm aware that there are people who sometimes by error you think you have put 100 and you have put $10, and you make noise, and then when you get home later on you discover, I made an error. The money that I thought I had put in there is actually here. So there is need for us to balance whatever we do so that we don't offend each other, because ultimately all of us are working towards going to heaven. And so all I'm saying is there are structures within each level. At local church, when it's a conference, obviously, if you are given a receipt, maybe at the front office, and you're not satisfied, you think there's an error, you have leeway to go and visit the senior accountant. Should that fail, you can visit the CFO's office. You can also visit the president's office. So that way, you are solving issues within their jurisdiction. It's difficult for you to leave the local church with the challenge of a receipt and go to the union or go to the division, because it becomes difficult for those people at those levels to assist you. So the advice is, let's exhaust the local procedures and whatever is available locally in terms of addressing whatever issues are there. Doesn't matter, we've just used the example of money, but it may be a lot of other issues. But the key in all this is that all of us are working towards going to heaven, and all of us want to go to heaven with everybody who is a church member. So that is the spirit that we address all those issues. We don't want to address these issues in terms of saying, oh, I've seen him do that, so I think he should pay for it. That's not the spirit. The spirit is that of a Christian spirit, which is encouraged by Matthew 18, that of building each other, because we are still on earth, as you have alluded to, and all of us are susceptible to committing all these things. There is no one who is immune to committing sin. So all of us need to work together to help each other. It's a difficult thing, I know, but once we start practicing it the right way, I am confident that most of the challenges that we sometimes face, we will be able to face. Otherwise, all things being equal, should you exhaust those local channels, you are free to visit the higher organizations. But the key is, let's exhaust the local channels available.
Yeah, I think that last line is key, to say we are not advocating for sweeping things under the carpet. We certainly want issues to be addressed, but I think the point you are making at the level at which they occur, but let's be very clear that should that fail, there are various levels that are ready and willing to hear some of these concerns that people may be encountering out there, some that we may not even be aware of. Our time is short. We want to transit. I'm about to invite our next guest on, but I'm seeing a question here. Oh, okay, this is a comment. Sister Beauty, thank you for this important address. Thank you, my sister. And a question from Alan Gulube. How does the local conference union distribute Zim dollar? Obviously, it can't be transferred to SIDGC. I think this person is definitely living in Zimbabwe and is aware of the economy, I mean, the state of our situation here in Zimbabwe. Yes. For some time, though, there was a provision that was in place for us to be able to do that. But of late, what has had to happen is that we are holding those funds in trust for the General Conference, for the SID, in light of our inability to actually transfer them as we used to do in the past. So that's a good observation. Okay, so maybe it's with that last comment that we're talking about accountability and things like that, allow me to add to the stream our brother Thando Nkomo. I'll let him introduce himself. Sometime last year, I think it was in 2018, we commissioned him to, do a survey to evaluate the customer service experience that we were providing as, ZWUC Treasury and in our local conferences, just to understand how church members felt about our financial service delivery. Some of you may have seen that tent. He went to a few camp meetings. He also did some surveys. He'll tell us who he is in a minute, but we just want to ask him a few questions around that. Elder Nkomo, welcome. Maybe tell us what you do, what your day job is, and maybe what made you qualified to do this work?
Thank you, Nda, for inviting me to the program. And hello, everyone. And I hope you are faring well wherever you are. What do I do? That's a tough question. I am a public relations strategist. I am a trainer. And my role basically in life is to help organizations meet their strategic communications needs. I currently work as a lecturer at a local university. And I also run a consultancy that focuses on strategic communication solutions for organizations, for the church, for individuals even. And so part of what I do is what then lended me the opportunity to do a benchmarking exercise for the church in the area of treasury services, just to understand what people think about treasury services, more specifically in the context of the customer experience. So basically, that's what I do, and I believe that's why you invited me to this occasion, Mr. Masu.
Yes, no, thank you so much for that. But someone may be asking, I mean, why is it important to evaluate and benchmark the services that we provide, financial services that we provide within the context of the church? We've heard about it in corporates. Why are we doing it in the church?
I like the fact that you've just used the word corporate, and the church is a corporate. Of course, we tend to think of the church as an informal gathering, an informal gathering because it's not mainstream business. But the church is a very formal corporate, serious corporate in the non-profit services sector. So when you think about the church in that light, you understand that benchmarking helps the church to be more strategic. In the context of financial services delivery, you appreciate that this is an international issue now. You know, customer experience, understanding customer experience is part of what everyone else across the world is doing. It's an international trend. And when the church takes a step of benchmarking and evaluating customer experience, it's really saying, you know what, we want to be more strategic. We want to be accountable. We want to be more professional. We want to also ensure that we deliver on the promise. And I think basically when we start to think about that, we'll realize that what this whole exercise of benchmarking and evaluating at the end of the day makes the church become a very accountable steward. The Bible does say we need to be accountable, isn't it? And this is one step of showing that accountability by evaluating, by benchmarking, and thereof, when we have benchmarked and evaluated, we can then set targets, real quantitative targets that we can then, at the end of the period, then say, okay, you guys, this is what you set out to do. How far did you achieve? And then we can talk from there.
Okay, so break it down. I mean, what did you find? What are the members saying?
All right. So what we went out to do when we interacted with the church members was to ask 3 questions, really. I've reduced them to 3. So for the purposes of this discussion. And the first one was, how do people view, or what are the perceptions that the customers of the church, actually, which is the church members, what are the perceptions that they have towards the local church and the conference level treasury services? And I want to say that, number one, there was a general positive view towards local church treasury services, which was quite interesting. People are quite happy. People are very optimistic. People are very positive about their experience of dealing with or relating with the treasury services departments at local church level, in spite of challenges here and there, such as lack of equipment or lack of a comfortable space for the treasury teams to be operating in. So people are really excited and happy about that. At the conference level, on the other hand, we found that people observed quite a lot of room for improvement. I remember people cited that they have faced instances of poor customer service. They have faced instances where the environment at which they access these financial services, it could be paying for goods and services, it could be returning your tithes and offering within a conference level establishment. They felt that maybe the environment is not the best. They really felt that there's room for improvement. And then in terms of some of the things that we identified as enablers or inhibitors of this customer experience and this perception, at local church level, the work environment, where the treasury teams operate from, that's something that definitely came out as needing attention and needing improvement. Then, of course, at conference level, what we realized that things like air conditioning, things like tidiness of offices came up as worrisome, and even the time taken to access this service was something that was worrisome. So yeah, this is what we found. And like I said earlier on, the spirit of these findings really were out of a positive, attitude towards what the church is doing. And when we have these things at our fingertips, we now know which gaps to address, what to scratch, what to improve on, so that we can have more people participating positively in as far as accessing financial services at the local church and at the union level and at the conference level.
Yeah, and I think the point, a big point to note is that this was done in 2018. Yeah. The hope had been that we do this annually. We've been hit a little bit because of COVID, but I think, yeah, you will be getting back to work soon to see if there are any improvements. I believe that there should be some improvements, but I think from what you found, I think you also came up with some suggestions as to how to improve. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. I think there are basically four items that I think are really, really strategic in terms of how we should be moving forward in terms of customer experience and customer service. Firstly, there is need for standardization and improvement of the quality of service. If you think about the service points, we need to train treasury staff. Anyway, when I say treasury staff, I'm even going back to the local church. So that person who is handling treasury services at the local church, right up to union even, they need to continuously go through training so that they are able to perform at their level best. Secondly, when we talk about training, we also need to have those benchmarks, at the local church and at the conference and at the union. There should be a benchmark to say, okay, this is how we know that you have performed excellently, and these are the things that we expect of you. So that's the first one in terms of where to from here, really. And then number two, the issue of transparency. And I'm happy that we've touched on this in this program today. People are worried about what happens to tithes and offerings, and people want reports. And this is something that came out very strongly. And and I think those who have been following what's been happening at the Treasury Department will appreciate that there has been an attempt to improve improve on reporting at union level, and we hope that this will translate downwards to the conference and the local church level in terms of how we report. We need more of the reports to show people that indeed their money, or rather the money that has been given back to the church and back to God, has been used properly and in a transparent manner. And then also, people were suggesting that we need to be more tech savvy in terms of financial services channels. And COVID-19 has given us a jump start. And I think, Ndlovu, you did mention earlier there that because of COVID-19, certainly we were worried about what would happen to the monies, what would happen to the tithes and offerings. But thankfully, people have been able to access financial services through the various electronic transaction channels, and that's something that we now need to say: how do we continuously improve the experience on the financial platforms that we're currently using? And then lastly, we need to improve access to technology for our treasury staff, especially at the local church. And obviously, this calls for a very creative approach to solving this. The local church treasurers do not have laptops. Churches may not even afford to buy laptops or even tablets. So we need to think, how do we address that? And you notice that these 4 recommendations really help us as a church to improve our service delivery. Why? Because it matters. People's ability to give, people's commitment to give, people's commitment to go the extra mile in terms of financial support to the church, aside of what they read in the Bible, is also determined by what they experience. And I think I'm excited by the steps that the union has done, the union has taken, and I think the future is bright.
Well, thank you so much for that. There's a lot of work for us to do, clearly, from what you've said. But the other exciting thing, I think, is that I think my colleagues will know there are some things that are what's the word, that bubbling under, that are almost ready for implementation in terms of software platforms, some from the World Church, that will certainly address some of the issues. Others don't require money. We just need to change our attitudes. We need to be more customer facing and appreciate. So we are taking the bullets on the chin if they're going to help us improve, and also appreciating that our tagline, your partner in mission. We work with partners. Those of us sitting in the offices are not the be all and end all. So let's continue to work together, and we appreciate the work you've done so far and the passion with which you have approached it, Elder Nkomo. You know, this program should be called an African Hour with Treasury, because we've gone beyond our hour and we're not here. So an African Hour with Treasury. So those of us who are watching, please bear with us. We're almost done. There's just one small thing. Maybe let's, if you can allow me just to quickly run through some of the comments here. We may not answer them, but just so that we acknowledge them. And wow, I really love this platform, because here in Italy, church are formed with family and keep telling you your money is for your pastor or my brother or my sister. Hold them accountable. There are systems. If it's the Seventh-day Adventist Church that we know, there is a system for that money. Like Elder was saying, do it in a Christian manner, but be firm, because that money needs to go where it's supposed to, and it needs to be distributed appropriately. We have Tabisi Dube. It's a long one, and thank you for this program. It's shedding light on how organized our system is in terms of handling finances. My concern goes to the collecting of these finances. Do we as a system have ways which seek to find how our members get their money so that we avoid the ministry being financed by money obtained contrary to our beliefs, or we just accept everything and hope the blood that cleanses will cleanse to the utmost. It will cleanse the dollars. Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, that one, Ntabisi, is a program all on its own. I've seen attempts on other platforms to address this issue. I do have a quote that I could have given you from Sister Ellen White, but let's accept that this is probably something to something that we need to address. But the good thing is there are answers to your question, and we will look at it in a different program, seeing as we are already over our time. Great program. Thank you, leaders. I do have a question, however. Is the local church limited to offerings for income to use as a church, or there are other activities and avenues that we are allowed to pursue in order to generate income as local churches? Certainly, there are other avenues. We did a feature on our Facebook page of Evi Mileni Church, where the ladies there, a group of ladies, have a bakery to augment their livelihoods. We certainly want to see more of that. We are the head and not the tail. Shoot me, but I firmly believe that as long as you are basing your understanding of the world on the principles that we espouse, you will succeed, and we should be seeing more innovation in our local churches. So don't get me started on this one, because that's one of that's my passion, those who know me. But I'm planning to have, along with my colleagues, a program that will address this. So look out for that at the intersection of money and mission. That should be an interesting one. Let's talk about that. And I think this one is just indeed an African hour. Oh, Sister Pumi, thank you for joining. Good to have you. And Skumbuzo Tuba, I agree with you, Alison Bebe, and other circles. There's a feeling that it is taken by local clarity in this regard is helpful. That's our stewardship director from the West Conference. Thank you for joining, Pastor. So with that, folks, I think we've come to the end of our program. If you can just oblige me a few minutes, I just want to play a video that was put together last year. It's about a project. You can see on our website. Our website, it's on the screen now, treasury.zuc.adventist.org. Visit it. We have a project on the cards to convert where we're currently sitting, some of us, into a wellness and medical center. It's an exciting project. So this is a quick video that we're going to play where our architect and our quantity surveyor, who we also took to Loma Linda to actually see some of the models that are happening there, so that we come and convert our facility here into something. We don't have a meaningful, well, we do have meaningful, but we don't have a medical facility that our city deserves, an Adventist medical facility that our city deserves, and a wellness center that espouses to prevention. So that's something that we are looking to have. You'll be seeing more about it, but allow me to just play this clip before we close, just so that it's a taster, and then we'll speak more about it in programs to come. So bear with me, and here we go.
Zimbabwe West Union Conference Treasury, your partner in mission.
So as you're well aware, we've gone on the fact-finding mission to the United States, where we visited various medical facilities, including Loma Linda, and we are currently busy with concept design and then implementation of the lessons that we've learned at Loma Linda. So if I can ask you to maybe zoom into the drawing. Conceptually, what we are looking at is then, as you can see, this is your existing campus, your existing facility. with that grey roof sticking out there being your dental center. And so the vision that we've got is then to convert your existing buildings, but also then to do additions to the existing buildings on top of your current parking area. So current parking sits over there. We are then still keeping that as parking on then columns. We will do our new addition. On the first floor to this building, the vision is to have a theatre, fully equipped theatre then, and on the floor above that we're looking at specialist healthcare. Into the existing, as you can see, we've got a bridge linking the two, linking the existing with the new. Also then creating access to the top floor of your dentistry. On
Zimbabwe West Union Conference Treasury, your partner in mission.
Oh, apologies. Apologies. I think something happened to our sound while we were playing that. Maybe that's actually a blessing in disguise, because the same video is available on our website. So that will force you to go to our website. Our time is up. So if you want to see more, visit our website. You can see the video on our website. But exciting plans are afoot. And we'll be telling you more about that. We'll be knocking on your doors to see how you can weigh in on making this dream happen. And we're also seeing some more comments that are coming through. We'll deal with them after the program in the comment section. But just to appreciate those of you who've joined us today, look forward to seeing you some more, and to appreciate the sterling contributions that have come in from our contributors, our brother Tando, brother Ndebele, and brother Ndlovu. Thank you so much. We also a special mention to Brother Ngube, who was attempting to join us. He will join us in the future, I'm sure. But thank you so much, gentlemen. And with that, let's call it a wrap. And we look forward to seeing you next month. We'll announce on all the platforms, and we'll have a different set of guests. Don't miss it. You are our partners in mission, and we look forward to that. Thank you so much, and have a great day. Let me just see if... No, I think... Yes, no, it's not there. Okay, no, that's fine. So thank you so much, gentlemen, and listeners too. Have a happy Sabbath. Enjoy what's left of your day.